Well, let's start with the big story of the day, and this is coming in from West Asia, where peace has once again been shattered. The skies over Gulf are lit up by deadly projectiles as conflict has entered a new dangerous phase. The United States has launched a fresh wave of strikes targeting the military sites in Iran, while Iran has responded with the signature playbook of targeting the U.S. military bases across neighboring Gulf. More strikes have been launched by the United States. In the latest, we are learning that Central Command, in fact, has put out on social media that they have launched another round of strike. The US and Iran are exchanging attacks again, with tension centered around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the latest strikes mark a major escalation, raising concern about the regional security and the global trade as well. Just a while back, US Central Command has posted on social media that they have once again started the attacks on Iran, on southern part of Iran, is what we are learning so far. So here's what has happened over the last few hours. Yesterday, Iran struck a container ship in the Strait of Hormuz, and after that, we saw US launching a large-scale strikes, hitting around 140 targets linked to Iran. And then Iran responded by targeting US-linked military sites in the Gulf, while Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, they said that they intercepted incoming missiles as well. So that is what has happened over the last few hours. And once again, we are witnessing that US and Iran have started exchanging attacks again. Let me get you more perspective and go across to Matthew Wadham, senior journalist based in USA. Thank you so much, sir, for connecting with us. We have seen this happen over the last few months as well, and now it is repeating again. What's your assessment of the escalation that we're witnessing in West Asia?
I think that the United States is responding to aggression by the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the United States wants to keep the waterways, the Strait of Hormuz, open so that 20% of the world's oil supply can can continue to flow through it. And India benefits from this, being a big importer of oil. Donald Trump wants to keep the price of fuel and gasoline here in the United States low because he is afraid that if the price is too high, that his party will lose the off-year congressional elections for Congress in November. So the United States is taking action. It's grown tired of Iranian game playing, and has decided that it's going to fight back. The United States for a while had been quite restrained, and President Trump kept issuing, ceasefires in hopes of cutting a deal with Iran. And they did arrive at that memorandum of understanding, which allowed for 60 days of negotiations, but it looks like the MOU has fallen apart. So we're back to warfare again, and I'm not sure how long it's going to last or what the end result is going to be.
It remains to be seen how this pans out in the coming hours. Stay on with us, sir. I'll come back to you once again. I'm also joined by Akanksha Swaroop. Akanksha, we have seen a lot happen over the last 24 hours. Firstly, Iran struck a container ship, followed by US hitting southern part of Iran, and then we saw tit-for-tat attack, and Iran hitting the Gulf countries as well. Now, in the latest, we're learning that US Central Command has put out that they have started another round of strikes on Iran. What more are we learning about that?
Right. So what we can tell our viewers is that the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Central Command Forces has directed the strikes to hold Iranian forces accountable. And in return, Iran's foreign ministry has also condemned what it describes as U.S. military attacks carried out over the past 24 hours. They're calling it a gross violation of the UN Charter, and they've alleged that they undermined recent efforts to reduce tensions in West Asia. Iran has also warned that any country that allows its territories or facilities to be used for any military operations against Iran could see the origin of such attacks treated as legitimate targets for defensive strikes by Iranian armed forces. So clearly the situation, Akanksha, is back to square one. Because yesterday we've not just seen Iran and the United States exchange attacks, it's also the U.S. allies in West Asia, particularly Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, that are all now back in the line of fire, and that is something we had seen earlier as well. So the situation's currently spiraling out of control, and there's a lot of confusion, or rather back and forth, especially in who is going to gain control over the Strait of Hormuz, because the IRGC has clearly declared that the Strait of Hormuz is shut, and we've seen a sharp contradiction, not just being, as far as the reopening of the strait is concerned. CENTCOM over there declaring that the Strait of Hormuz is open. That was also backed by the U.S. President Donald Trump himself in an interview. And so the fight is now about continuous authority and autonomy and who gains control over the Strait of Hormuz. It's now become a war, and it's always been a war about gaining control over maritime routes and oil.
All right, so this has to do with the Strait of Hormuz, and that's the reason perhaps why we're witnessing another round of escalation. Thank you so much, Akanksha, for putting that into perspective. We'll keep coming back to you for more on that. In fact, let's also tell you about the fury in the Gulf. Here's a look at the key targets that have been hit in in the latest target across the Gulf region. Let's show you them here on the screen. As far as Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, they are concerned. There was attack on the US bases here in the last few hours is what we are learning. It all started, as we told you, with Iran hitting a commercial vessel, as you can see right here in the Strait of Hormuz. And they said that the commercial vessel entered an unauthorized territory. And after that, US hit out at 140 targets in the southern part of Iran, as you can see right here. And in retaliation, we are witnessing in the last 24 hours, Iran has hit out at Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar as well. So that is the latest we are learning as far as the escalation in West Asia is also concerned. And in fact, this has to do with the Strait of Hormuz. On July 7th, Qatari LNG tanker was hit near Oman, and that is the reason why we're witnessing the escalation as far as this key waterway is concerned. And after that, we've been witnessing escalation there in the region. In fact, even the merchant ships are navigating the Strait of Hormuz are no longer immune to the attacks there. Saudi crude oil tanker on July 7th, tanker was damaged near the Strait of Hormuz. So US has been saying that multiple commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz, they have come under attack. But Iran has said that they were in fact crossing an unauthorized territory. Then on July 11th, and this is the main focus, GFS Galaxy, a vessel was hit near the Strait of Hormuz, and this led to then US attacking 140 locations in Iran, followed by attack on the Gulf countries as well. All right, so that is the latest as far as the entire controversy is concerned. And with that, we have a breaking update coming in from West Asia. Response that has come in from Iran's foreign ministry. It has condemned what it described as a US military attack carried out over the last 24 hours, calling them a gross violation of the UN Charter and claiming that they undermine the recent efforts to reduce tensions in the region. Iran has warned that any country allowing the territory or facilities to be used for military operations against Iran could see the origin of such attacks treated as a legitimate target for defensive strikes by Iranian armed forces is what we are learning so far. So this is a reaction that has come in from Iran's foreign ministry that has now condemned what it described as a US military attack carried out over the last 24 hours, calling this a violation of a UN charter. Let me get you more details and go back to Akanksha Swaroop on this. Akanksha, in the last few hours, several of the Gulf countries, they have been hit. Give us more details about that and what Iran and US are saying on this.
Right. So it's important that we also highlight what the statement being put out by the Iranian Foreign Ministry is. It's going on to talk about how this is a blatant violation of the UN Charter. It's not a military confrontation. It is the continuation of unprovoked act of aggression initiated since 28th of February by the United States and Israel both. This, of course, is being traced back to the killing of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And Iran does not attack. Iran's strikes on U.S. military bases and assets stationed in the southern Persian Gulf constitute a legitimate and lawful exercise of its inherent right to self-defense under international law. So that is what Ismail Baqai, who remember is the spokesperson of the Iranian Foreign Ministry, Akanksha, has had to say. He's also gone on to urge the countries in question to immediately cease allowing the U.S. to use their territories as launch pads for aggression against Iran. Now, this has been a huge bone of contention ever since the war began in West Asia. We've seen that Iran has thoroughly condemned why the West Asian allies to the United States are providing their territories to the U.S. to use it